Hello everyone. In this video, I would like to briefly talk to you about verdict search, what it is, when to use it, and how to use it most effectively in your case, whether you are the attorney or you are a party to the case, whether you're the plaintiff or the defendant. Now, I'm not affiliated with any of the verdict search providers out there, but it seems to me that the most commonly used verdict search tool is still verdictsearch.com, which appears to be part of law.com. There are other alternatives out there, and you're free to choose the type of tool that works for you. But this seems to be one of the most commonly used and probably one of the largest databases of verdicts. So, what is verdict search? Verdict search is a search engine tool. It's like Google, except for court verdicts, court awards, and also settlements. You can search verdicts and awards by all kinds of parameters, from location to the type of case, to the type of injury, to the type of party that has been injured, and to the type of damages that are being suffered. You can search verdicts in just about every area of law, of civil law, from injury to employment, business litigation, medical malpractice, and other types of civil law. You can be as general or as specific as you like. And the more experience you get, the more understanding you get of this tool, the more effectively you'll be able to use it by setting more specific parameters. And let me give you an example. You can be as broad and general in your search as saying to the tool, I want to see verdicts of all the car accident cases that went to trial in California in the last 10 years. Or you could be as specific as saying, I want to see all the verdicts that came out of San Francisco or Sacramento Superior Court that involve a two-car accident where one car T-boned the other, and the victim, the injured party, is a passenger that was sitting on the same side as the impact, as the T-bone impact. And you only want the results that include medical expenses over $50,000 or wage loss of over $100,000. And you only want cases that involve the following injury: broken ribs, concussion, broken vertebrae, broken knee, or whatever else. Now, when is it really good idea to use verdict search? And what are the typical cases in which verdict search can be particularly useful? It is my experience that verdict search and getting those results is particularly useful when it's really hard for you to quantify the damages in your case, because the damages don't seem to be translating into specific numbers, but they have some kind of mental, some kind of significant emotional aspect that's way more significant than the actual monetary losses. Let me give you a few possibly extreme examples. Let's say you have an employment case in which your client, the employee, was sexually assaulted by their boss. They complained about it. They were fired, but a week later, they found a job that pays as much or more than the previous job. So you don't have much of a wage loss, but you have a really terrible incident. And if you have the right evidence, you're not quite sure. How do you evaluate that case? How much is that incident worth, so to speak, in terms of settlement? Well, that's where verdict search comes into play. You can search all the employment cases in your state or in your county over the last 10, 20 years that involved sexual assault by a supervisor against their subordinate and see how those cases turn out. In how many of them, the victim of assault actually prevailed? In how many of them, the jury returned a verdict for the defense, for the employer? It will be very important for you to know before you decide how to proceed with your case, how much money to demand from the other side in compensation. Another common, very common type of case in which verdict search results are very useful is false arrest and false imprisonment. Let's say you are shopping at a retail store and you are falsely accused of stealing, and you are detained for 2 hours or 4 hours. Maybe you're detained locally on the floor of the store. Maybe you're taken to the room. Maybe the security personnel uses force and they take you down uh, to the floor. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe they don't. Maybe you're a person of color. Maybe you're not. How do you evaluate how much that case is worth? Well, the best way to evaluate is kind of like real estate, to look for comparable situations and awards in comparable cases. The same, of course, often applies to unlawful searches and seizures by the police, unlawful stops and frisks, unlawful stops and searches of vehicles, and many other cases in which maybe you don't have wage loss or you don't have medical expenses, you don't have a serious physical injury, but nevertheless the incident itself is egregious, and you have a hard time evaluating how much that incident is worth. Now, let's talk about understanding and appreciating results. If you set the correct parameters in your verdict search and you get relevant results, let's say you get 100 relevant results, you should look and review all of those results. You should see how many cases a client similar to yours was victorious in how many cases this type of person prevailed, and how many cases went the other way. It is important to know in order to assess what your chances are of winning at all. We know that there is always a chance to lose. There's probably always a chance to win, but you got to see what your probabilities are. Then look at the most similar cases, look at the awards, and try to come up with an average number of those awards. Unless, of course, you can find a case that's so remarkably similar, one case or more, that you can just rely on those numbers. Now, how would you use the relevant verdict search results in your case? Well, one obviously effective way to use it is to present those results to the other side. When you make a demand, when you draft your mediation brief, you would say something like this: these are the facts of my case. This is what happened. This is why you are responsible, you're liable, this is why you're going to lose. Oh, and by the way, this is how much I'm asking. And these numbers are based on actual verdicts in this county, in this state, for very similar cases. Many people find this type of empirical data, empirical information, to be more persuasive than just about anything else. And many insurance companies also find this information useful. That's why they have their own accounts. That's why they do this type of research themselves quite often. Now, going back to VerdictSearch.com, you have several ways of using it. You can sign up for an account, which not too many people need. Not too many of us, even attorneys, use it often enough to have an account. You can sign up for a one-day pass where you can do as many searches as you want for that day. I think it's $395 or something. Or you can talk to their consultant and you can tell them exactly what they need, and they can advise you and run a search for you, one search for $300. It's really worth it, especially if you believe that your case has a significant potential: false imprisonment, sexual harassment, sexual assault, attempted rape, any other case that involves egregious conduct by the bad actor, racial harassment, racial slurs, racial discrimination, egregious age discrimination with statements suggesting animus toward age, toward race, toward religion, all kinds of incidents in any case that sound particularly egregious. You have cases, you have employment and religious discrimination cases where a manager would put pork in a Muslim employee sandwich. How much is it worth? I don't know. Do a verdict search. You might just find similar cases, maybe not in your state, maybe in other states. This type of information can be very valuable to make sure that you don't overvalue your case, and you also don't shortchange yourself. You don't lowball yourself when you negotiate. And this is true about both sides, whether you're the one suing or whether you're the one being sued. Both sides need to know that what they're asking for is reasonable. Thanks for watching. Until next time.